Hi, folks. I'm Kelly Coleffel, your host. Every other week, we'll bring you insightful interviews with some of the brightest minds across the data community. We'll cover topics such as AI and ML, Gen AI, enterprise data and analytics, data culture, and a lot more. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Clinton McFall. He is Director of Technical Operations at Davey Resource Group. Clinton has more than a decade of experience in geographic information systems. His expertise includes systems integration, crafting innovative enterprise solutions, and he always has a continuous effort to maximize workflow efficiencies across Davey. During his time at Davey Resource Group, Clinton's led the deployment of several enterprise scale projects, including the deployment of time systems integrated with SAP ECC and S4 HANA, the creation of proprietary production management software, and the migration of an on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. Clinton began his career in the public sector, working at a local government organization while pursuing his bachelor's from Kennesaw State University. Clinton, it's great to have you on the show today. Welcome in.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I gave a few highlights there, but why don't we dive into your experience, some of your journey on, I touched on a little bit this on-prem to the cloud. We want to hit on that, leadership lessons, a whole range of things, but tell me a little bit more about yourself and then Davey Resource Group. That may be a name that some really interesting things going on at Davey, but maybe not everybody knows about. So if you could hit that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Davey is an amazing company. And even when I started here, the things I learned and continue to learn about what we do is still surprising to me. So just to kind of give you a tour of the company so that everybody kind of understands the structure. Davey Tree Expert Company is the parent company. Davey Resource Group, where I work, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Davey Tree. And it is Ohio's largest employee-owned company, and actually, I believe we're ninth largest in the nation now. And it's been kind of exciting to see us, go up the top 100 list, so to speak, since I've been here. So, with that being said, there really are four main markets within DRG, and utility asset management's one of them. Again, that's where I'm housed. Utility vegetation management, and then environmental consulting, and then mitigation services.
Do clients typically utilize services across those four main areas, or do you find that you haven't got a big base of clients that's just environmental consulting, just utility and asset management, et cetera?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's a mix, honestly. I do think that there are pockets, of isolation of key specific folks that use specific markets, but definitely in the utility space, it's definitely growing. There's a lot of cross-market pollination there, and then there's also a lot of cross-market service line, components to that as well.
I'm guessing on that utility asset management side that you focus on, there's multiple segments there as well.
Yes, there is. Absolutely. So the four main segments of utility asset management are construction services. If you're ever driving around, out and you're looking and you see utility poles, you see one that is old, beat up, maybe broken, sitting next to a new one. We'll go out there and we'll help service those. We'll move those attachments from an old pole to a new pole, help pull that pole and get that liability, out of the way for the client, be able to provide the data and associated records back to them. There's another one in that same market, drop removal, where we'll actually work with clients, help look at their data and information to determine maybe where they're attached to poles that they don't actually service anymore. Paying rent on those poles, and we can help them remediate those and essentially get those liabilities off their books as well. And then laying fiber. So for example, new internet service providers are interested in servicing a territory or an area. We'll actually go out and string up the fiber for them and help them make all the connections for that. So that's one whole market of just construction services. But yeah, then there's three other markets too. So we have field services within utility asset management, where we essentially conduct inventories or verifications for our clients, and it's exactly what it sounds like. They'll ask us, "Hey, we want to go get all of our assets. We want to inventory those. We have a data model that we would like to fit that within," and so we'll go out, we'll help them collect that information, provide it back to them so that they can use that for the business reasons. And then verification, same thing. They'll give us data that they want verified. Maybe it's geospatially incorrect. Maybe the actual tabular information is out of date. So we'll help them update that information and again, help them ingest that back into their respective systems. Then the last two, we have engineering, where we do make-ready engineering. So we'll actually, internet service providers want to come in an area, they want to string up on, X number of poles. They think they want to go down this route. We'll help them find the optimal routes, help them make sure that, all right, well, can you string up on the poles that exist? You need to bring in more poles to do this. What are the permitting constraints? What are the things that need to be done there? And we kind of help both sides of that depending on the client too. So we might work for a pole owner, or we might work for somebody trying to attach to a pole. And then the last one's reliability services, where we'll actually go out and help our clients inspect their assets and then also do any restoration that may be necessary. So if you have, a pole that has decay or maybe it was hit by a car or something like that, needs to be restored, depending on the spec and the requirements of the client in the area, we can go out and facilitate those things as well. So those are really the four main markets that utility asset management services.
I mean, there's a lot of physical there, but the physical today has such a dependency on the decision making, I would think, on the physical, on the amount of data that you're able to gather, and the way, not just the amount, but the way you're able to use that effectively on a day-to-day basis. So really interested in exploring this with you. So, all right. So Clinton, you have talked about in the opening several large-scale implementation projects. One of those was migration of on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. Talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I guess from a scope perspective, it was really focused on our asset management infrastructure. So we do have a lot of different footprints and different cloud providers, and still some on-prem. So we're multifaceted in that sense. We kind of have a trajectory mapped out here till 2030. And based off of that, we wanted to make sure that we had the runway and a solid foundation to get there. A lot of this infrastructure was geographic information systems based. So we really wanted to make sure that we had the ability to scale up and out, so to speak. And being able to move that specific stack to the cloud really gave us that ability to do it. And just to kind of give some more specifics there is, again, we can regionalize servers based off of, geographic areas or specific clients, so that we can attune the operation to those constraints. So that was really the driving factor to make some of those decisions. So from a success standpoint, we have been very successful with it. We've learned a lot of lessons along the way, as anyone would. The other thing I would say about cloud-based infrastructure is, test it, try and create your infrastructure there and bake it, let some systems and things go through their paces. But of course, when you throw, full volume at it and throughput, that's when you're really going to start seeing, where you need to make some adjustments and tune things. So I would say be ready for that and kind of plan for that tuning stage after you make that migration. But overall, it was a good project for us.
Well, I can imagine, on the utility side, that your core GIS systems those really are your operational systems that you're kind of living with every day. Where do today, data warehouse, data lake, these types of workloads live that are more general, where you may be combining up some GIS info with some other operational info from databases or other applications? Was that on-prem then and that got migrated, or did you just start that out in the cloud?
The inception of that really did start on-prem and in a more relational database structure. But, as technology has changed so quickly in the last few years, the idea or the concept of that data lake has really matured with this as well. And so we still have a footprint in many areas, but we do segment specific data points based off of requirements or whether or not we're owners or the clients are owners, those types of things. That's something that we spend a tremendous amount of time, and that's something that we really respect. Who are the owners of the data, and are we shepherds of that data for them as we go through the project and the process? And then, for our data sets that we use to really drive our operation, those are enriched in the cloud-based environment. So we use tools like BigQuery. We use a variety of different BI tools as well. Looker Studio, some things from Microsoft. So yeah, we have a pretty diverse footprint, and a lot of that too is dependent on what our clients are able to consume, some of the requirements that we have from our clients, those types of things. So we get to play in a lot of different toy boxes, so to speak.
So when you look at the challenges on a migration project like you did, which sounds like it had multiple dimensions, you had data platforms, you had your core operational platforms, GIS, and I always think of three major areas that you've got to take into account. You got technology, you got process and approach, and you have the people aspect. I mean, what was the most challenging out of those three for you during this process? And then what gave you, maybe it's just, that was the easy part.
Honestly, the communication, clear communication, I would say is always a challenge on a large scale project like that. And making sure that the team fully understands, what they contribute to be able to execute that. I think that's the big thing. The other challenge with this, and I'm sure every data professional that you probably speak to is going to say this, is the data governance changes that you institute along the way. Data governance is not the sleek, sexy thing. It's the AI, the ML, the large language models, those types of things. But those things are driven off of data, and the data governance behind that is a big portion. So I would say that's also a challenge. It's a bit of a change management piece. And helping the organization understand, whether it be field collection or whether it be a process in the back office, is those data governance components really impact the ability to be able to scale things and then to be able to leverage some of those new technologies. There's a lot of excitement in the organization, as any organization, around AI, ML. That's the big buzz right now, right? And I think the most important thing, and I think a lot of people say this, is understanding what challenge you can apply those technologies to. I think a lot of folks are excited by the technology and they're looking for a place to go apply it. But really understanding what challenges do you have and where do those technologies organically fit that you can build something off of. And then the challenging part, again, to that data governance piece is, how do you help the organization understand the value of being able to do that, to be able to leverage those new technologies? As we started kind of pulling together, a data lake for our own internal metrics and tracking and things like that, is, we understood that there were a lot of disparate data sets that have value when they're brought together, but it isn't necessarily easy to understand how those things connect. So being able to help the organization understand the value in putting the governance in place on how we capture that data, so that we can then see that value come out of some sort of product, dashboard, AI, ML tools.
Any examples of those where you said, hey, this hadn't even thought of this combination of data sets that stood out to you, either back then or maybe that you're working on today?
Yeah, absolutely. We did a couple POCs with some very interesting partners, very good partners, where we started pulling some of our telematics information from our trucks, mm-hmm. right? Our vehicles out in the field. So we could see the locations, could see fuel consumption, you could see idle time, you could see acceleration, braking, those types of things. So really trying to figure out, is there a way to be able to use that to help the operation, to help safety for our staff and our employees. And we've actually had some very interesting use cases, where we've had folks that were, their vehicles were stuck, no cell service or anything like that, but we were able to, hey, this person wasn't able to get back to the yard in time. The vehicle's still out and about, and we were able to find it, deploy some folks to help get them unstuck and get them back before the evening. So, but being able to tie it together with telemetrics data, traffic data, wildfires is a big thing for us as well. Knowing where those things are happening, so that we can make sure that our teams are safe and they have their ability to check in and check out. So being able to tie all those data sets together in kind of a dashboards of sorts, and being able to see where they're at and tie some of that production information, very valuable. But you can imagine, the scale of that project to be able to launch something like that full bore.
Talk to me a little bit about data delivery into your data lake environment, into your data warehouse environments. What are you doing today? What's that diversity of data sources that you have? What are some of the challenges that you have there, and what are you doing to address those?
So we are very particular about, what ends up in the data lake, what ends up, in those isolated data structures that we spoke of. So that is something that we have to be very cognizant of. As far as the data lake components, though, is, that's a lot of the data that we use from an operational perspective to really understand what we're doing, how we're doing, and be able to maybe do some predictions, predictive models and things like that on production. We have, I would probably say, somewhere in the ballpark of 30, 35, 40 different data pipelines right now, again, from an operational perspective that we're using to really help manage the operation and get those insights internally, and kind of dog fooding essentially what we're building and constructing, so that we can put that in a package model when we see fit to do those things for our clients. The delivery, obviously Fivetran's a partner of ours as well. So, we have found a good partnership there, and really learning how to use these tools and push them to their limits. It's open data sources too, weather, traffic, those fire sources, then our production tracking components. Telematics was one that we mentioned a little bit, is POCing that. So, it's a maturing process for us.
What about, you mentioned AI, ML, Gen AI, anything that, I don't know, looking out this year that you go, hey, that might be a really interesting Gen AI POC or POV or pilot. Is there some concrete goal, objective business problem that you see out there in that AI, ML, Gen AI space that maybe you haven't tried yet today, but maybe it's on that list for you later on this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. There's a couple things that come to mind, but I think the biggest thing is figuring out, how can we create something in our product tier for our clients where they can interrogate the data in a new way.
Okay.
We see a lot of these large language models. I hear a lot of buzz about being able to put unstructured data like photos or PDFs and be able to read from that. I think it would be interesting to be able to interrogate a map that way, right? Again, GIS background is, what if you could just ask basic questions, specific geographic regions, or, on average in this zip code, how many poles exist here, or how many poles in my projects exist here, and, what's on those poles or something like that. We could be able to provide that to a client as we're going through the project with them, give them an opportunity to be able to easily ask questions without having to write complex queries or query wizards. I think there might be some value there.
Really, really interesting. What about change tracks just a bit? Been leading these teams as technical services team, and a huge component from a data leadership standpoint as well, with all the data that you're dealing with at Davey. What to you, Clinton, is most important? What qualities are most important that you feel like when you're leading a data team, you have to have these? If there's a story or example of that as well, that might be really interesting to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind is curiosity, right? In industry, specifically this industry data, I think, you really have to understand what data set you have, what you're working with, and what you can do with it. So, folks that inherently, have the curiosity quality, so to speak, they ask questions. They want to understand those data sets. They want to push it to the limit to understand what they can do with it and what stories they can tell. And then secondarily to that is the attention to detail. Once you understand what you have as far as a data set, being able to blend that with other data sets, you got to have that attention to detail. I've got a really amazing team of solutions architects, and really the fact that they are as curious as they are has really led to new innovative solutions that we would have never thought of behind the scenes. Some of that is exactly how we got in partnership with Fivetran, and being able to use the technology to help create isolations of certain data sets so that we can keep the production environment healthy, keep it functioning with minimal impact, but still be able to provide insights either to our clients and to our operations. Being able to generate those reports on a daily basis is powerful, but being able to have it in your real time, that's a different ballgame. So being able to see some of that and be able to make some business decisions off of it, that really was the impetus for exploration and saying, all right, how far can we take real-time information and data, and what are the limitations of it? And there are limitations, don't get me wrong, especially when you're blending data sets that are coming in at different intervals. You definitely have to be careful with that because it can tell a different story if you're not. But yeah, that was the inception of the idea and kind of the curiosity that got us here.
What did your solution architects start with? I'm just curious. What was that original source that you started with Fivetran? And I assume it was going to BigQuery, but what was that source? They said, "Hey, this is the one. Let's go after it."
Yeah, I mean, really, it was trying to get some better insights on our production, and really just understanding, all right, what operationally are we doing so that we can provide better insights to our clients? Here's the timeline that we're going to meet. Here's how we're going to do it.
Here you are a few years later. Well, Clinton, this has been great. I have learned a lot. I really appreciate you joining the show today, and I look forward to keeping up with everything you're doing at Davey.
Well, I appreciate being here. It was a great conversation, and I'm excited to keep following the cast.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody who listened in today. Also, we appreciate each one of you. We would encourage you to subscribe to our podcast on any of the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, and Google. You can also find us on YouTube. Visit us at fivetran.com/podcast as well. You can also send us any feedback or comments at podcast@fivetran.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you soon. Take care.